So, hello there, Leo listeners. It's Cara here, and I have a very special guest with me today, Sabrina from calmenglish.com. She's a fluency and accent coach working with professionals and using mindfulness and meditation. So, I've brought her on to help you deal better with any stressful listening situations that you find yourself in. So Sabrina, have you got anything to add to that brief introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Cara. It's so good to be here with you. And no, that's a pretty good introduction. I would say I focus on fluency with my students and with this mindful approach. So making sure that we're calm and relaxed as we're learning or as my students are studying on their own, and then going out to speak in the real world. I want them to have that confidence and that calmness as they go to use their English, because it really helps to have more accurate English if you're calmer and more centered. And that's what my students are always looking for, to have more accurate, better English.
Okay, great. So how did that actual decision come about then to use mindfulness and meditation in your English teaching? Were you interested in those concepts anyway, or like how did it come about, this idea of calm English?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you sent me a question before the interview. You said your website used to be called Speak English Live, and then you changed it to Calm English. So there was something that happened between the original naming of my website when I decided I wanted to teach English online. So I decided this Speak English Live would be good because I wanted to have live classes with students. And then between launching my website, so starting my website, and then changing the name, I did a whole program on contemplative education. So I did a master's program in mindfulness and introspection, so looking inside, understanding how we feel and all of our feelings and how we connect to the things that we're learning. That's what the whole program was on. So as a teacher, I try and make sure that my students connect with themselves as they're learning English, with all of the different topics that they need to learn, maybe for work, maybe for travel. And I also help them learn how to use mindfulness to be calm and relaxed as they're learning and then as they go out to speak English.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's really quite different to, some of the more traditional approaches. There isn't really too much of that introspection, maybe reflecting at most on your learning style or your preferred way of learning, but not so much kind of the feelings, I guess. So what have you found are some of the advantages of using that type of approach with your students? What does it bring them?
Yeah, so confidence, number one, which a lot of people who are learning to speak another language in general, I know that when I was learning to speak Spanish, when I was learning Spanish, I didn't really learn how to speak it. I didn't have the confidence to go and actually talk to someone in Spanish, even my teacher or even my classmates in the classroom. So I didn't have that confidence. And this sort of looking inside and understanding where I connect with these topics, I think it would have really helped me in that case, to just take a moment to breathe. Maybe at the beginning of each class, I may have felt more calm. And then I probably would have been able to speak more in class. I would have learned faster, I think. And that's what I noticed with my students. So at the beginning of each class, we take just a short 30 seconds and we just sit together and we just notice our breath. And my students have said that it really helps them to learn, because they're coming from this place of being calm, not from, oh, I'm so nervous and I have to learn all of this and I don't know what I'm going to say in the meeting and all. So we have all those feelings. And it's fine to have all those feelings. It's not that those feelings are wrong or bad, but we can sit with them and we can notice them. We can understand where they're coming from and why we feel that way. And then we can work to overcome, to really understand those challenges.
Okay, right. That sounds really interesting, because maybe, I don't know, for people who've maybe never meditated, I've done it a bit myself, and I'm trying to do it more regularly, but maybe, I don't know, one of the misconceptions when you hear the word like meditation, maybe not so much with mindfulness, is that you have to sit there cross-legged saying and for hours on end, like a Buddhist monk. So like,
Right.
that problem. I mean, do people say, I don't know, meditation, that's, I'm not a Buddhist monk, why would I do that?
Yeah. So we have this idea that meditation means completely clearing your mind, having no thoughts, and sitting still for an hour or 2 hours or 7 days in a silent retreat. And that's one form of meditation. But you can also use meditation and mindfulness as a busy professional, and you can fit it into your day. So as you're typing on your computer, maybe if you work at that sort of job, you can just notice, how do my fingers feel on the keys? What's the temperature in the room? What are the thoughts going through my head as I'm writing this? Am I feeling tense here? Do I need to relax a little bit? So we're just noticing what's happening.
Okay, so yeah, mindfulness is kind of a fancy word for awareness or noticing, really.
Noticing, yeah. I'd like to think of it as noticing what's going on, being aware, like you said, awareness.
Yeah.
And we can do mindful meditation. So maybe that's where we start to feel like, what is this only for monks? Is this only for people who have 4 hours to sit and meditate? No, you can start with just a moment. Sometimes right at the beginning of when I turn on my computer to start to work for the day, I'll just sit for a moment. It might only be 10 seconds, and I'll just think about, what's my intention for today? What do I want to do today? And that can be considered just a moment of meditation as well.
Okay. So yeah, just finding moments in the day to stop and think, okay, yeah, how am I feeling? What am I doing? Yeah, and we don't really do that, but I suppose it's so easy to introduce it if we are mindful about it, I guess. Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. So you heard it here, you don't have to sit there for hours. I've been doing a bit of meditation with an app called Headspace. I don't know if you've tried it, but really you're just sitting there for 10 minutes, just noticing kind of how you feel, how your body feels, and then just counting your breaths. So it's not like a weird kind of ritual. You don't have to have grown up in a monastery as a monk. It's just, sitting there and becoming more aware. And it's actually quite a nice feeling. So, that's my take on it. Have you tried Headspace or any sort of meditation apps?
Yeah, I've never used that specific app. I use a different one. Oh, I'm forgetting the name. I'll have to tell you later. It's just a simple bell. There are different apps where it just rings a bell. It's just a timer. Maybe it's called meditation timer or something like that. But Headspace is a great way to start because you can listen to a guided meditation. I think that's some of the options, right?
Yeah, you start and so you've got, it's actually a guy who used to be a Buddhist monk who takes you through the meditation and explains what to do, what to expect, and really teaches you, like not to kind of, if you have thoughts, you don't fight them or try to suppress them, or if you have sad feelings or upset feelings, again, you just acknowledge them, and you just work on, focusing on your breath. And the goal is not to completely empty your mind, but just acknowledge what passes, and then just move on and concentrate on your breathing again. So I think it is really good for beginners because you get guided through the process.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you'd like to not have a guided meditation, you can use any of the timer apps. And you could do 30 seconds or a minute or 10 minutes, whatever fits into your schedule. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
10 minutes is enough. I was going to say, like, you don't need 4 hours.
yeah, 10 minutes. If you do 10 minutes a day, that's amazing. That's 10 minutes more than most people are doing. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the kind of the meat, the main reason why I brought you on here, because I've realized that I kind of tell you, the audience listening, you just need to work on your listening, do some dictations, do some ear training, learn how English sounds, and then you'll be fine. And I've realized that maybe that's not enough. We can do all the practical things, but ultimately, if we don't feel confident going into situations where we have to understand and that we're scared of, we're not going to do our best. So I'm thinking of situations that I know my community experiences, like, especially if they're living in an English-speaking country. So, having to phone people you don't know and try to understand them on the phone, which is just horrible and terrifying for everybody when it's not your native language. Or knowing that you have to go and speak to a colleague who speaks fast and never makes any effort, or going to a film where there won't be subtitles and knowing, oh, this is going to spoil the film for me. So for people watching who are experiencing these kind of stressful listening situations, how can they use meditation and mindfulness to prepare themselves and go into these situations feeling confident?
Yeah, so there are a couple things that they can do. So number one, they can prepare beforehand. And what you're talking about here, Cara, all of the different practical preparations, that's definitely something that will help them feel more confident when they go into these situations. We can also look at the emotional side of the confidence. And so you can do this by before. So number one, before, you can prepare beforehand by just taking 10 seconds. You can close your eyes if you'd like, or you can leave them open and just take some deep breaths and just remember, I've prepared for this, and however it goes, it goes. You can think those thoughts, or you can just notice your breathing. So you can do that for 10 seconds or 30 seconds, and then make the phone call, or then go out and meet your friends and go to the movie, or then go into the big meeting. So even as you're walking to the meeting, you can just notice, how do my feet feel on the ground? That's another way to meditate. You can meditate as you're walking. So you can notice the sensations in your feet and in your legs instead of focusing on the breath.
Okay. So just
you can do
something that's not focusing on the thoughts in your mind going, I'm not going to understand. It's going to be like last time. Why am I, anything that makes you kind of get out of your head. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because those thoughts will come in, and you can just say, that's a thought, and I'm noticing my breathing, and I'm remembering how much I've practiced. So, or I'm walking and I'm noticing my feet. So, and that thought, I'm going to mess up. Okay, that's a thought. It's a thought.
Yeah, you don't have to believe your thoughts. Yeah, this is a big thing that I've learned recently.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Thoughts aren't true. So like, I think we all have that problem with the voice in our head sort of telling us things, and often quite nasty things. And like we decide that it's true, or maybe it's from our past or something telling us, or coming through and telling us things that maybe used to be true, or maybe they weren't even true at the time and we still think they're true. So I think that's a really good point to just kind of, the thought is allowed to come and then it can just go.
Yeah, and you can decide, is that true? Was that true for me? Is that true for me today? Is it going to be true? So it's more being open to what could happen, right? There's that quote. You could, but what if what if I fall? Oh, honey, but what if you fly? Like, there's the positive side to it. We could fall down, or we could fly.
Yeah, it could go really, yeah, really well. And I like the fact that your first point was like, you have to do the work. Like, I remember reading I've got a book about positive thinking. I think it's called Everything You Wanted to Know About Positive Thinking, but Were Too Afraid to Ask.
That's a nice title.
But in the book, you know, it gives you not like mantras, but well, a little bit like a kind of phrase that you can repeat to kind of reprogram your subconscious mind. So really that's just, you know, because I think only a tiny percentage of your thoughts are actually conscious. Everything else is kind of unconscious, things that you've learned over the years and that you've decided are true. So you can work on kind of reprogramming the subconscious by kind of like repeating phrases to yourself. And there was one about preparing for like exams and tests and preparing, for example, for a driving test. But in the book it says, you know, if you haven't practiced your 3-point turn, you know, then like it won't work. Like, you can't repeat to yourself, I'm ready for my driving test, I have prepared, because obviously if you haven't, you know, no amount of positive thinking is going to replace
so do the practice, look at your flashcards, practice with your speaking partner, take your classes, all of the things that you know you need to do, listening, writing, whatever is the best for you. We do that preparation, and then you can also prepare the mind.
Okay, all right, well, that seems like a great combination for for coping with those situations. I know I've kind of done an equivalent of that before, like in living in France as I do. Like, I mean, I'm not really scared anymore of phone conversations, but I know that, you know, originally, like, I had to kind of maybe check a couple of words before I made the phone call and just make sure I had top of mind the phrases I could use to ask someone to repeat, to ask them to slow down, and then just decided I would do it. But yeah, I can see the advantage of having not only the practical stuff, but also saying to yourself, right, I'm just going to breathe, remind myself that I've prepared, and then I'll do it.
So that's number one. I guess number one could be all the studying and preparation.
Yeah.
And then number one, then we breathe before the situation. So number two, you can also use this sort of breathing and mindfulness as you're in the situation. Because as things come up, you're going to hear words that maybe you only heard half of them, or maybe there's some vocabulary you don't understand. And then what do you do in that situation? You can just close up, or you can breathe and you can remember, oh, okay, I'll ask them, can you say that word again? And even native speakers have to do this with each other. So it doesn't mean that you're a failure in English. It just means that you're using your English and you're asking someone to say the word again.
Oh yeah, that's totally normal. Yeah, I think, and that works both ways. I think also for speaking, it's funny. I've been doing work with students, like with my videos on Instagram, to make them more aware of some of the features of fluent speech, like the fact that people pause, that they add sounds like or that they use phrases that don't mean anything. And, you know, some people have said, oh wow, so I can use these in my speech. And it's like, yes, that's totally normal. Like, nobody has a spontaneous conversation and says every single word perfectly and never has to ask anyone to repeat. Or yeah, it's funny, sometimes learners think they have to be perfect, whereas, you know, nobody's expecting it in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, I forget words in English, and I have to ask people to say, was that 15 or 50? There are just certain words in English that are hard to understand sometimes, even for a native ear.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if you add on just day-to-day kind of life, like you've got ambient or background noise because you might be somewhere noisy in the street, in a shop with music, the line on the phone might be bad. and we can't control these things, which is why, that happens. We have to ask each other to repeat or speak more loudly. I couldn't find the word either. I was going to say speak stronger, but that's not what we say in English. That's what we say in French, but yeah, speak up.
Oh yeah, speak up, speak up. See, so there's a real life example, and even me too. There. We don't always speak perfectly. I mean, we watch TED Talks, right? Or people who are speaking, or on the news. They're actually reading what they're saying, and that's why everything is so perfect. And people who do a TED Talk, they've spent hours preparing that 5 or 8 minute speech, and they've practiced over and over and over again, probably at least 100 times. And that's why they're able to not trip over any word, and they have perfect pauses. But when we speak in the real world, we will make mistakes. So yeah, being okay with those mistakes is a big part of having more confidence, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good way to look at it, to take the pressure off yourself by just accepting that, it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, TED Talks are a good example. I did a podcast about them recently, and there's a quote on the TED website. It says, like, give the talk of your life. So literally, like you say, people do spend, hours and hours preparing. And not only that, before that, they spend years and years becoming experts in their field. So by the time someone asks them to give a TED Talk, they're ready. They've probably given other talks, and they know that it's crucial to get the TED Talk right. So obviously it ends up perfect. I don't think anybody messes up their TED Talk, but I mean, that's like for a tiny percentage of the population who are like, world experts in their field. For just normal people like us, we probably won't be in such a kind of high pressure situation.
Yeah, and perfection. It's not normal, I guess. Not normal. Being perfect and saying everything perfectly. It's not normal. We make mistakes, and we say and and we repeat words, and it sounds okay. It sounds normal.
Yeah, it's you want to sound normal, definitely. Yeah. So I think that's why it's nice as well for me to have these chats with people, because when I do my podcast, I try to speak normally. So I obviously, I pause and I leave in the ums and the ers and the mistakes. But what's a shame is that obviously I'm just monologuing. I'm not talking to someone. So it's interesting to also add that dimension where you hear how two people interact, and how sometimes people even help each other in conversation. If you forget a word, the other person can help you, or help you finish your sentence. Like, you're not alone kind of in either listening or speaking. You've got another person with you to help you out. So
yeah, and we can think of it that way, not like I'm going into this situation and everyone's staring at me and they want me to be perfect. You can think of them as your speaking partner. So they're helping you communicate. They're communicating with you. So it's two people working together, or more if there's a bigger group. But they're your speaking partner. So your partner helps you out. Your partner fills in the words when you don't know the word.
Yeah, they're not your enemy. And I think
speaking enemy. They're not your speaking enemy. Yeah.
And, obviously it can happen to everyone, where you have a bad experience where maybe somebody doesn't understand you, or you really don't understand them, and there's kind of a breakdown in communication. But I think the majority of the time people are good-natured. They bring goodwill to the situation, and if they see that you're struggling, they're going to help you. And you can help yourself by doing those simple things, like asking them to repeat, asking for clarification, asking for a bit of help. I think most people aren't going to make you feel bad that you had a bit of difficulty at some point. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and thinking about it from a business perspective. So if I am your coworker and I'm saying something to you and you didn't understand, I want you to ask me, what exactly was that? Can you explain that to me again? Can you say that to me again? Or if I'm your boss and I'm giving you some directions and you don't understand something, I want you to ask, how exactly do you want me to do this? So from the other side, um, from the person who's speaking and being listened to, I want the other person to understand me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, that just makes me think of somebody who I worked with in my old job. So it was a non-teaching job. It was in a company, in an industrial company, and it was a new situation for me. And one of my colleagues, he like said to me on the first day, like, if you don't understand something, you come and ask me for clarification. It's absolutely fine. And more importantly, he said to me, if you haven't understood, it's because I explained it badly. And I thought that was so kind of humble of him to actually acknowledge that, because I think sometimes in the workplace with the hierarchy we can think, you know, the boss tells you what to do, and then if you don't understand, it's some kind of failing on your part. But in fact, it's the job of the people higher up to make sure that you are doing things right. That's what they're paid to do. They're not paid to make you feel stupid or anything. So, you know, hopefully most people will land on bosses with that attitude. Not that it happens everywhere, but some people are, you know, aware that it's their responsibility also in the communication to make sure that you have understood. And that goes for whether it's your native language or English.
Yeah, and as companies become more and more international, there are, more and more teams where all of the different people on the team speak a different language and they share English together. So they really understand that this isn't our first language, and so they want to give that kind of help. So being mindful and thinking, okay, am I not asking them to repeat because I feel like that would be saying my English isn't good? Or am I not asking them to repeat something for another reason? So we can really look inside and find out why we're acting how we are, and to see, what does it have to do with English? Does it have to do with my personality? Does it have to do with the culture? So you can look at those different aspects because it's going to be different in different situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because it's easy to say, oh well, just, you know, learn some of these phrases that you can ask, and then learn when it's a good time to interrupt, and then you'll be fine. But obviously, if it was that simple, everybody would be, you know, doing it and understanding everyone fine. So yeah, no, I think that's a good point to look at our motivations and our kind of, yeah, what's stopping us from doing something which is on the surface that we're totally capable of. So I think, yeah, no, that is useful to look inside and think, was there something bad that happened before to me, or yeah, some kind of fear that I might have. Yeah.
Yeah, and different cultures value the individual and other cultures value the group. So maybe if you're working with a group of people who are more European or American or North American, they value the individual. So maybe they will speak more, they'll speak up more. But maybe in some of the Asian countries, it's more the group. So you'd rather have everyone have the group be in harmony, happy, right? And so then you don't speak up. But then maybe you're from one of the more individual cultures and you're working with people who are in a more group culture, or maybe the other way. So you can look at that too, because different English will be used in those different situations.
Oh yeah, the whole cultural dynamic is a really important point, and I think it explains a lot of times where, in theory, everybody understands English, but in fact, it's the different communication styles in
Yeah.
cultures that cause the breakdown. Wow, so lots of things to think about beyond just the language, some inward-looking things, and then some more outward kind of cultural elements to be aware of. Wow, my stool is just falling over. It's fine, I've got it. So is there anything else, any final tips or advice you want to add before we finish off?
Well, I can just recap again. So number one, we want to really do our deep study and practice the way that we know we need to be practicing for these situations. And then number one, before the situation, you can take a breath and just notice how you're feeling, try and relax, try and calm down. And then number two, you can use mindfulness while you're in the situation. So you can notice how you feel, how the English culture that you're in, how that is creating different communication styles, and should you ask someone to repeat, should you not? So you can just be mindful when you're in those situations.
Okay, that's grateful advice. That's great advice, and I am grateful for that advice. So I'm mixing, I wanted to say great, and I was also thinking of mindful. So your brain does weird things to you when you're trying to speak. Right, so that's great advice. Yeah, do the work and then be mindful before and during. I think that's perfect advice, and I hope that will help everyone watching in preparation for any kind of stressful communication situation, whether it be in listening or in speaking or something else that kind of causes you stress. So before we finish up, Sabrina, where can we find you to find out more?
Yeah, so if you'd like to follow me, I have a blog on calmenglish.com. And if you go to that homepage as well, you'll find some different free things that I've put together for students. So you can either download a fluency guide, so my top tips for becoming more fluent. And I also have, it's about five or 6 minutes. I have a free guided meditation that you can download. So you can listen to this before you're studying or before you go into one of these stressful situations. And yeah, just check out my blog, because I'm working on writing more about mindfulness and learning languages. So I'm going to have more and more articles on my blog about that. So you can sign up and you can follow me, and I'll send you emails there too.
Great. Oh, I'm looking forward to those new articles. And well, the existing articles are all really good. I've shared some of them in the past, especially the ones about podcasts.
Yeah, thank you, Cara. Thank you. Yeah, I have a whole bunch that I've written, but I haven't published them yet. So I think you will like them. So yeah. Be on the lookout for that.
Good. I look forward to that. So Leo listeners, get over to Sabrina's blog and have a look at that. So yeah, thanks again, Sabrina, for coming and for all your tips. And I think like everyone listening, I'm going to try to be more mindful during the day, when I'm typing, when I'm walking. That was some great advice. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks.
No problem. Bye, everyone.